Every man carries within him a monster, an elemental force of raw potential, instinct, and power. This inner beast is not inherently evil, nor is it something to be feared in itself. Rather, it is how a man chooses to relate to it that determines his strength. The weak try to silence it, terrified of its intensity. They live cautiously, hoping that denying this primal part of themselves will keep them safe. The foolish, on the other hand, let it run wild and undisciplined, mistaking chaos for strength. They become erratic, destructive, and ultimately powerless, slaves to impulses they cannot control. But the strong, the rare few who understand what real power is, they train this monster. They refine it, discipline it, and harness its force with precision. They do not suppress it, nor do they surrender to it. They master it. If you identify as a Sigma male, independent, strategic, and unbothered by conventional social hierarchies, then here's a hard truth you must confront. Niceness, in and of itself, commands no fear. Being kind, agreeable, or emotionally open is not enough to earn respect in a world ruled by power dynamics. No one fears a man who is merely nice. And no one respects a quiet thinker unless they can sense the storm he's holding back. Your silence must carry weight. Your calm must feel dangerous. Because if you truly believe that staying logical, composed, and detached from drama is enough to succeed in this world, then I'm sorry to tell you, you've already become prey. Quiet, polite, philosophical prey. This message is not an invitation to rage or performative masculinity. It's not about pretending to be some alpha caricature who screams, threatens, and postures for attention. That's not strength. That's insecurity dressed up as dominance. Real power doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to perform. It moves with silent precision, and it changes the energy in a room without making a sound. When a man has trained his inner monster, when he carries the kind of internal discipline that can end a threat without raising his voice, people feel it. They don't always know what it is, but they instinctively know not to test it. Let's be honest. If niceness and emotional availability truly worked as advertised, half of the deep thinkers out there wouldn't be ghosted by the very people who claim to value them. The truth is, people are drawn not just to intellect or sensitivity, but to presence. Presence backed by control force. They respect men who radiate potential energy, who feel like they could erupt, but don't. That restraint is what makes you powerful. That contrast between calm and capability is what makes others pay attention. So now, it's time to stop playing small. It's time to descend into the dark engine room of your potential. The part of you that has been told to stay quiet, to behave, to be acceptable. It's time to stop asking for permission, to stop waiting for validation, to stop hiding the fire that makes you formidable. Power was never something the world was going to hand to you. If you want it, you must reclaim it, as if it was stolen from you, because it was. Awaken the monster within you, not to lose control, but to gain it, because the true danger is not the beast that lives inside you. The real threat is the fear that keeps you from becoming him. The monster is not your enemy. He's your weapon, and it's time you learn how to wield him. 1. The world doesn't respect quiet strength until it's backed by controlled fury. In today's world, calmness without power is often mistaken for submission. A man may be intelligent, disciplined, and even spiritually grounded, but if people don't believe he's capable of unleashing controlled chaos when necessary, his silence will be interpreted as weakness, not wisdom. This is the harsh reality of power. True power doesn't reside merely in composure or kindness. It resides in the subtle awareness that beneath your calm exterior lies a controlled, lethal force. When people sense this, they act differently around you. They respect not your words, but your presence, because they intuitively feel the consequences of crossing you. The world doesn't respond to politeness. It responds to consequence. Some men rarely get challenged or disrespected, not because they're loud or aggressive, but because there's a weight to their energy, a silent, unmistakable warning that if provoked, something irreversible might happen. Unless your quiet strength carries that same edge, that lethal undercurrent, you'll be ignored, tested, or even walked over. Being nice but firm is no longer enough. In a world full of manipulation and power plays, the only language people understand is that of consequences. If your energy doesn't communicate, I can destroy you. but I choose not to. You'll spend your life being bypassed by louder fools and manipulated by those who detect even the faintest scent of hesitation. Controlled fury doesn't mean losing your temper. It means having the ability to do so, but choosing not to. This self-control is what makes you dangerous. You become unreadable, unpredictable. People sense that you aren't someone to test twice. This is the edge that commands respect in rooms filled with predators. Not charm, not logic, and certainly not calm alone, but calm tightly coiled around a dormant threat. When you carry that energy, people speak more carefully. They listen more closely. They stop trying to provoke you, not because they understand you, but because they know it's safer not to. Sigma males aren't born to bark for attention. They're born to make the room feel colder just by entering. That effect is only possible when your fury is trained, honed, and silently loaded behind your eyes. 2. Monsters don't wait for permission. They take what's theirs. One of the biggest differences between men who succeed and those who stagnate lies in the gap between potential and power. Most Sigma males get stuck in a perpetual state of potential. They wait for the right timing, for someone to validate them, or for conditions to feel perfect. But while they wait, lesser men move. They don't ask. They don't apologize. They take what they want, often without deserving it, simply because they understand that the world rewards boldness, not worthiness. The uncomfortable truth about life is this: success does not go to the most virtuous, the most intelligent, or the most disciplined. It goes to those who demand it. If you keep waiting for fairness or permission or acknowledgement, you'll remain invisible. A Sigma male without his monster intact becomes a quiet genius who watches idiots rise. He becomes a disciplined man who plays fair but receives crumbs. Why? Because he still believes that virtue alone creates results. It doesn't. Power comes from presence. And presence is felt when you take up space, act without apology, and move like someone who belongs, whether invited or not. Everything changes the moment a Sigma taps into that primal, unfiltered part of himself. The part that doesn't wait, doesn't seek approval, and doesn't care about pleasing others. That's when hesitation vanishes. Overthinking is replaced by decisive action. Self-doubt becomes personal enforcement. Approval-seeking dies, and in its place rises a man who claims what's his. This isn't about arrogance or aggression. It's about moving through the world with the inner conviction that you're not here to be liked. You're here to win, on your terms. Without the monster, even the most strategic Sigma becomes passive. He rationalizes missed opportunities as bad timing when, in reality, he just didn't act. He avoids necessary conflict, calling it wisdom, when really he's been conditioned to stay small. But when the monster's awakened, when it takes the wheel, everything shifts. You speak differently. You walk with authority. You stop shrinking to fit people's comfort. You stop apologizing for your standards. And most importantly, you stop asking for permission to take up space. That's when the world takes notice. That's when doors open, or get kicked open, because the monster inside you doesn't ruin your life. It restores it. It reminds you that nothing real is ever claimed without force. 3. The dark side isn't evil, it's precision power. Many people fear their darker impulses, associating them with cruelty, recklessness, or even evil. But for the Sigma male, the dark side isn't about chaos. It's about control, precision. Most men are taught from a young age to suppress their aggression, their assertiveness, and their instinctual power under the guise of being civilized. They're told to stay calm, to detach, to rise above. And while there's value in discipline, suppressing your darker nature doesn't make you stronger. It makes you predictable. It makes you easy to manage and manipulate. Tapping into your dark side doesn't mean becoming savage or cruel. It means understanding your most aggressive instincts and learning how to use them strategically. Real dominance doesn't come from always being kind. It comes from knowing exactly when not to be. It's the ability to apply pressure without hesitation, to confront when necessary, and to walk away when something no longer serves your mission, without looking back. This is the essence of precision power. The dark side gives you the tools to cut off manipulators without guilt, to say no without explaining, and to move through life without needing to soften yourself for anyone's comfort. It sharpens your instincts. It's the part of you that detects betrayal before it happens, sees patterns others miss, and walks away from emotional drainers without needing closure. If you're not using it, you're fighting with one arm tied behind your back. When a Sigma male learns to control and channel his darkness, not suppress it, he becomes unstoppable. He moves with a quiet force, speaks with cold logic, and holds boundaries that are non-negotiable. This makes him unreadable, unpredictable, and untouchable. And yes, it makes others uncomfortable, but not because he's a threat in the reckless sense, because he radiates a type of presence that reminds people, this man doesn't need to shout, and he doesn't need to warn you twice. So no, the dark side isn't evil. What's evil is wasting your life being soft and safe when you were born to lead with power and intensity. The world doesn't respect comfort. It respects strength. And real strength only shows up when your darkness doesn't own you, but obeys you. 4. Being morally neutral makes you dangerous in a world of extremes. In a society obsessed with binaries, good versus evil, right versus wrong, hero versus villain, most people fall into the trap of needing to pick a clear side. This rigid thinking is comforting to the masses because it makes people easy to categorize, manage, and manipulate. But the Sigma male doesn't play by these rules. He operates in the gray zone, a space beyond labels, and that alone makes him terrifying. Not because he's inherently dangerous in the traditional sense, but because he's uncontrollable by conventional levers like guilt, shame, or the need for external approval. This makes him a psychological wild card. The Sigma's strength lies in strategic morality. He doesn't waste energy preaching righteousness or seeking validation through virtue. Instead, he plays a long game, evaluating every situation through a personal code that prioritizes purpose over public perception. While others argue about what's right, he's already 3 steps ahead, executing moves that serve his vision without ever having to explain himself. This makes him unpredictable, and that unpredictability is what unnerves people who rely on clear moral narratives to feel safe. When you shift into this morally neutral mindset, not unethical, but situationally adaptive, you begin to ask radically different questions. Instead of, is this right? You ask, does this align with my purpose? Instead of seeking approval, you evaluate whether an action strengthens or weakens your position. And this change disarms emotional manipulators completely. Most people are easy to control because they're desperate to be seen as good. But the Sigma male who transcends that need becomes a force of nature, unnegotiable, unshakable, and unapologetically authentic. He stops playing by society's rules and starts setting his own, becoming someone who can't be guilt-boxed in or swayed by emotion. 5. You can't dismantle predators with politeness. Intelligence, calmness, and good intentions are valuable traits, but they are not enough in a world populated by narcissists, manipulators, and false alphas. These social predators aren't persuaded by reason, softened by kindness, or deterred by intellect. They test people constantly, not because they're bold, but because they're opportunistic. And when they sense that your boundaries are more theory than action, they push. They don't care what you say, they care what you're willing to enforce. The Sigma male doesn't fight fire with chaos. He doesn't lose control or stoop to the level of manipulators. Instead, he masters the art of surgical response. He doesn't yell. He corrects with cold, unflinching precision. He doesn't chase. He withdraws strategically, removing energy and attention like a weapon. He doesn't respond emotionally. He calculates, then delivers consequences that are deeply felt and unmistakably final. This level of control isn't loud, but it's powerful. When predators realize you're colder than they are, more prepared than they assumed, and perfectly willing to escalate if pushed, they back off. Not because you've made threats, but because you've radiated unshakable boundaries. You become immune to their tactics, not by playing their game, but by refusing to react and making them realize that testing you comes with real cost. In this way, the Sigma male becomes not just a mystery, but a fortress. 6. The monster isn't a threat, it's a deterrent. In a world obsessed with performative toughness, where many confuse volume for power, true danger isn't loud, it's silent. Real power doesn't come from barked threats, aggressive posturing, or theatrical displays of dominance. It comes from quiet, controlled intensity, the kind of presence that doesn't need to announce itself, because its very existence implies consequence. When someone walks into a room with the energy of, I can destroy you, but I choose not to, everything changes. This is a true function of the monster within, not as a weapon to wield recklessly, but as a presence that reshapes behavior without needing to be activated. People feel it when they interact with you. They see it in your posture, your eye contact, your economy of movement. When your body language, tone, and aura communicate calmness wrapped in potential danger, you become the human equivalent of a coiled predator, serene, but not safe. This isn't just psychological, it's evolutionary. Animals instinctively avoid provoking something they can't predict. Humans, despite their sophistication, aren't that different. When people sense that your calm is not weakness, but restraint, they speak more carefully. They watch their tone. They reconsider their actions before testing you. Because somewhere deep in their instincts they understand, if pushed, you will respond, but only once and decisively. The monster inside you is not a problem to be suppressed. It's a force to be harnessed, not for chaos, but for deterrence. When it's trained and integrated, you don't have to prove anything. Your presence alone does the talking. That's when the world starts respecting you. Not because you demand it, but because you become impossible to ignore. 7. Radical self-protection requires weaponized intent. True self-protection goes far beyond the ability to say no. It involves building the inner power to enforce that no with absolute conviction. It's not enough to draw a boundary. You must possess a capacity to defend it when challenged. This level of protection is forged through the cultivation of psychological sharpness, emotional precision, and strategic dominance. It's about being mentally alert, emotionally unshakable, and tactically wise. These qualities form an invisible shield that keeps chaos and disrespect at bay without the need for confrontation. You don't need to make threats, raise your voice, or display aggression to prove your strength. In fact, the most powerful men don't need to prove anything. Their energy alone speaks volumes. When you carry weaponized intent, an aura that suggests, I can strike, but I choose peace, it becomes a silent force field. Manipulators sense it and retreat. Those with bad intentions hesitate. People become more respectful, more cautious, not because you said a word, but because your very presence communicates consequence. This is the armor of the Sigma male. Unbreakable eye contact that doesn't flinch under pressure, unshakable composure that remains intact in any storm, and unapologetic standards that don't bend to fit others' comfort. When you embody these traits, the world treats you accordingly. You stop needing to demand respect because your presence naturally commands it. 8. You were born with teeth. Why die with them unused? It's one of the greatest tragedies of modern masculinity. Men born with the tools for strength, courage, and assertion choose instead to live tame, docile lives. Most men suppress their instincts in favor of politeness. They avoid conflict even when disrespected. They seek approval from a world that only offers conditional acceptance. In the end, they die with their power untouched, never having spoken hard truths, never having enforced their worth, never having taken what was rightfully theirs. The Sigma male understands that his teeth aren't ornamental. They are essential tools for survival, protection, and the assertion of identity. They exist so that you can defend yourself and your values, not with violence, but with unflinching clarity and resolve. Honoring this power means being willing to speak when silence would be easier, to draw lines when it's inconvenient, and to walk alone when the group demands conformity. You have a choice. You can die filled with regret, choking on words you never said, buried beneath boundaries you let others cross. Or you can live unapologetically, sharp, clear, and completely alive. The monster within doesn't make you dangerous to others. It makes you loyal to yourself. It's not cruelty, it's completion. 9. Monster mode keeps you free from psychological chains. Most people live in mental prisons built from guilt, fear of judgment, and the unrelenting need for validation. These invisible chains keep them compliant, agreeable, and afraid to stand out. They constantly adjust themselves to fit expectations, terrified of being disliked or misunderstood. But the Sigma male escapes this prison through the ruthless application of weaponized attachment. When you no longer care about being understood, when you stop trying to please, explain, or justify your existence, you become immune to manipulation. You start making decisions from a place of personal clarity, not social pressure. You cut off draining people not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You say no without the need for an essay to accompany it. Your mental energy becomes laser-focused and unavailable to those who haven't earned access. And that's when the real transformation happens. You become uncontrollable, not because you resist everything, but because no one knows how to sway you. You become unpredictable, not because you're chaotic, but because your motives are your own. And most of all, you become unstoppable, because no external force can interfere with a man who doesn't seek external permission to move forward. 10. The monster is a real you. The nice guy was a mask. The persona of the nice guy is often a carefully constructed mask, one built to please others, to win approval, to avoid confrontation, and to survive in a society that punishes raw masculinity. But this version of you isn't real. It was shaped by conditioning, fear, and the desire to fit in. It's not authenticity, it's performance. Behind the nice guy is your true self, the monster. This monster isn't something to be feared or suppressed. It represents your raw power, your primal instincts, your uncompromising presence. It is the side of you that tells the truth without flinching, that walks away when standards aren't met, and that refuses to ask permission to be powerful. This is the real you, the complete you. Integrating this part of yourself doesn't turn you into a villain. It doesn't make you cruel, aggressive, or antisocial. It makes you whole. You stop diluting your energy. You stop making yourself smaller. You start living as the man you were always meant to be. Someone who doesn't shrink in the face of power, because he knows he carries just as much, if not more. The monster isn't the problem. The mask was. And once you remove it, what remains is a man who is powerful, precise, and finally, free. Final truth. Become the storm. The world isn't reshaped by tame men, or molded by those who constantly chase approval and seek to please everyone around them. History doesn't remember the agreeable. Progress doesn't arise from comfort. The real shifts, the revolutions, the breakthroughs, the legacies, are created by men who have embraced the totality of their power, who no longer apologize for their intensity, and who operate from a place of inner certainty rather than external permission. It's not aggression for aggression's sake. It's not about harm or ego. It's about stepping fully into your potential. The Sigma male understands that his strength isn't something to be hidden or diluted. It's something to be honed, directed, and wielded with precision. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't chase validation. Instead, he moves with quiet confidence, guided by principles that cannot be negotiated and a presence that speaks louder than any words. To awaken the inner monster is not to become cruel or reckless. It is to finally take ownership of your life. It is to protect what matters, lead with unwavering clarity, and when necessary, dominate the space you've earned, not to impress, not to intimidate, but to set the tone so that the world meets you on your terms. When you reach this state, when you stop waiting for permission and start moving like the force of nature you were meant to be, everything changes. Doors that were once sealed begin to open. Respect that was withheld now arrives unprompted. Freedom that felt distant becomes your natural state, not because you fought for it violently, but because your energy made it inevitable. This is the Sigma male at his highest level, not chained by guilt, not softened by fear, and not diluted by conformity. This is a storm that doesn't roar, but still shifts everything in its path. This is the monster mastered, and in that mastery lies the only kind of freedom worth having, the kind you built yourself. Do you resonate with the ideas I shared in this video? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in more content about Sigma males, explore the other videos on this channel. Thanks for watching.